Hello, everybody. Welcome to another session of LinkedIn Live. Glad to be back with you today with another awesome guest. And today we're going to be shining the spotlight on Tianna Brown. So if you're joining us for the first time or you've joined us before, you know the drill. If you've joined us before, tell me where you are joining us from. Just put in your city, tell us what you do. We really want to connect with you. And we want questions as well, and we want you to contribute to the questions. So, contribute to the questions or even ask a question, and we'll be sure to ask that question live as well. And if you're watching the replay, we always come back and engage with you and connect with you. So still feel free to tell us where you're listening from and, add your comment, add your question, and be part of the conversation. And a little bit about me, I'm a change management strategist. I'm the founder of the Change Leadership, and it's all about change conversations today on leading and responding to change in today's dynamic business environment. If this is your first time with the Change Leadership, you could always learn about more about us on thechangeleadership.com. And just a quick reminder, we have an event which will be coming up very, very, very soon, which is a book discussion, change management, the essentials. And we're going to be meeting with the author and Lena Ross. And that's going to be on August 30th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. So be sure to join us on there as well. I'll drop the link in the comments so you can always check that out and register. It's a free event, it's a book discussion. Get the book, join us. Okay, so back to our change conversation for today. Like I mentioned, we have Tianna Brown. She is an award winner of the Change Leader Awards 2023 in the DEIB category, which is diversity, equity, inclusion, and belonging. The B is a very important part of it because you know what they say about you can invite someone to the dance, right? So you're including them, but do they feel like they belong and they're part of it? Are you asking them to dance as well? So the DIB is very important. And why is the Change Leader Award important and why we put in this spotlight on Tianna today? Because we believe everyone is a change leader, regardless of their role or title. Everyone can be a change leader, regardless of their role and title. And that's why we're always excited to highlight people on the Change Leader Spotlight here on LinkedIn Live, as well as why we came about the Change Leader Awards to spotlight our everyday leaders who are leading with courage and making a difference in their community. So enough about me from about Tianna. I want Tianna to tell us about herself. So tell us a little bit, Tianna, about yourself. Welcome to the Change Conversations LinkedIn Live. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
First of all, thank you so much for inviting me. I'm so honored to be here. So, as Yvonne said, my name is Tianna Brown. I live in Guelph. I am the Communications and Culture Manager at RLB Chartered Professional Accountants. I'm not an accountant, which is good news for me and the clients. I've kind of shaped a role for myself between HR and marketing, where I focus a lot on DEIB, as we mentioned, but also culture and mental health, and just making sure our team feels like they're connected and safe and welcomed and belonging. Outside of work, I'm a wife and mother. My background's actually in radio broadcasting, but very excited to be on this new journey, and just very much love my job and what I'm doing.
Thank you so much. And I've just learned even more about you, like learning more about you and your background in radio broadcasting. So, I'm coming to you for tips. Another thing that, I love about Tianna, so I'm going to kick out for 2 seconds, is I always love her lipstick.
Oh,
There's something about the red, even if you're having a down day, you just put on some red and it just lifts up your spirit. So I'm going to kick out about that just for one tiny second.
I always say it's smoke and mirrors. When I'm having a bad day, I start with the lipstick.
I know. So, Tiana, let's start with you telling us a little bit about DEIB. I'm fascinated about that, and we're going to go into your journey to, being an award winner and what that feels like. But the specific award is DEIB. Why DEIB for you? Why is that an important area for you, and why is your focus in that area?
I am 100% a people person, and I always have been. I'm very passionate about making connections with people, and I've always been the kind of person that gets people involved and checks in. I think I'm naturally an empath, and I just see when people are going through something. So it's my personality to just be inclusive and have those conversations. And finding out that there was a role or a pathway or career path that basically was my personality worked out very well for me.
Mhm.
And when we're talking about diversity, I mean, we're talking everything, not just from the traditional standpoint of, racial groups or gender identity or sexual orientation. We're also looking at neurodevelopment.
Mm,
We're looking at, ability or disability, um, caregiver responsibilities, the whole
mm,
entire person who is a team member coming to the organization and what barriers they're facing or what challenges they are living with beyond just the role that they have, right? That kind of
mm.
the entirety of the person, which I think is really important.
Yeah. You know what? I'm going to selfishly go into three areas. So one is the neurodiversity and the disability, because I feel that's something that we don't shine enough light on. So there is definitely a lot of talk around racism, gender, and all of those areas or some of those areas. But when it comes to neurodiversity and disability, I think sometimes they easily take a back seat. I may be wrong, correct me. And the area I want to selfishly go into, because I'm beginning to find myself in that position, is caregiver. I've never kind of realized that that was part of DEIB. This is my first time hearing about it. So shed a light on it a little bit for us there.
I think DEIB, like the belonging, really is it's the definition that your organization creates, and for us, it's really just understanding what everyone's going with. But I think, especially during a pandemic, understanding that you know you have a life and you have responsibilities outside of your 9 to 5 or 8 to 4 or whatever it is, trying to be a mother at home with a JK who was trying to log on to remote school was a struggle, right? And even
Mhm.
if my kid gets sick or has pink eye or whatever, there's challenges and struggles there. And
Mhm.
within our organization, I have a bit more flexibility. If I want to start work at 7 a.m., so I can be done at 3, so I can pick up my kids from school, I can do that. If I
Mhm.
want to work from home because, my 12-year-old isn't quite old enough to be on her own or she's sick and she just wants me nearby, but I don't have to spend the whole day taking care of her, I have that option. I also support my grandmother who's elderly. So sometimes there's doctor's appointments or tests I have to take her to, and having flexibility in my schedule to do that is really important. And
Mhm.
not being discriminated against or feeling like I'm letting my team down by having to augment my schedule a little bit is really, really helpful. I know for myself, but
Mhm.
maybe someone has a sibling or a child with special needs where they have, a routine that they need to build their life around. It's a little bit more welcoming, and you have that sense of belonging when you can explain to people and there's not this judgment of, oh, well, Jane in accounting can just take all this time off because she's got kids, right? It's understanding that we have responsibilities and everybody has responsibilities.
Mm.
Just as a caregiver, it might look a little different.
Oh, thanks for sharing that. And what about neurodiversity? Tell us a little bit about that. What are we seeing in that space now?
I think even the definition of neurodiversity is still evolving and changing. I know social anxiety's kind of been included in that group now, so we're still understanding what it means. But as far as supporting someone who might be on the ASD spectrum, where they're less likely to make eye contact, and just understanding that that's not a sign of disrespect, or even when you're designing a workplace, and
Mm.
understanding that if it's too open concept, the noise that carries can be really upsetting or uncomfortable for some individuals if they are neurodivergent.
Mm.
Understanding that maybe coming into the office or being in a traditional workplace isn't the right place for them because of
Mhm.
their neurodevelopment. Just having that awareness and understanding of how that kind of plays into the success of each team member, because it
Mm.
looks different for everybody.
Yeah, thanks for sharing about that. And I'm about to go into wanting to hear more about what your journey has been like to be a change leader in this space, And but just quickly, if you're listening to live. If you're listening to the replay, just drop a emoji. We want to know you're listening and tell us where you're listening from. So Tianna, tell us a little bit about what that journey has been like, becoming a leader of change in this space, especially when it comes to DIB, whether in your organization. I can imagine that, even leading change in areas such as the belonging part or neurodiversity or caregiving, which has not, really been part of, that bigger definition of when we talk about DEI, must be challenging in terms of getting people to understand what it means and why, and the buy-in and supporting. So tell us about that journey, what it's been like.
Absolutely. So, as I mentioned, my background was in broadcasting for half my life. I did a very short stint in hospitality before I started at RLB, and those 4 months were probably the worst of my life. I was very depressed and I was struggling with my mental health. And then I came into this organization where everybody was very supportive, and there had been talks about kind of beefing up the mental health program, and I feel like it aligned and it was the right time for me. And I kind of just took over and built a library, and we got a Headspace account for everybody, and we have mental health first aiders, and kind of included in that was my start, that was my diving board. And then I did more research, and I was like, well, if we've come this far with mental health, what else can we do? What else can we talk about? And I actually created my own job role. It became I was getting the work that was required of me in my role done, but also like pushing the boundary very respectfully and having questions and saying, why aren't we doing this? Well, I get that, but could we do this, or could we offer that? Or I read this article, and, getting information to the leaders and just very respectfully pushing the envelope, and, just saying, this is the time, this is the age we're in, this is what everybody else is doing. Let's not only do that, but let's be at the forefront, right? Let's not just do what everybody else is doing, but let's start, pushing those boundaries and setting the standard and doing what we can to make an incredible experience for our team. Our motto is people count. And that's not just like a cool bumper sticker that we slap on our brand. We really do invest in our people. And that's something that I think is really important. If that's what we're going to stand behind, we need to make sure that that's what we're doing.
How were you able to get their buy-in? So you were brought in for mental health. You're doing the work you were brought in to, and now you're trying to bring in more change into the organization. How were you able to get their buy-in to do that?
I think any change really has to come from respect and having respectful conversations. I'm very passionate about my beliefs and what I see for this organization. But if I just kick in the door and start saying, like, this is how it needs to be, obviously people are going to flinch and kind of have walls. But if you respectfully broach the subject and have a conversation and then ask questions and understand what is the hesitation, or why couldn't we do this, or what's a better way to do it, or what do you see? And I think the one thing that has been huge is making sure you meet people where they are, right? I have read tons of articles and gone to webinars and researched all the live long day, and I can't expect people to be where I'm at. So I have to meet them where they are and figure out, okay, so you're there. I would love to meet in the middle at the very least, but I have to meet them where they are to understand where they're coming from, because and we keep talking about respect for the whole individual, they have their own beliefs and upbringings that they're coming to the table with, biases, and I don't think biases are all negative, but everybody has their own biases, and understanding where that person is coming from helps you kind of evolve, and having a respectful conversation, and knowing that it takes time. It's not going to be an overnight thing.
So would you say one of the things that was important was building trust? Because when we talk about change and leading change, it's about building trust. And like you mentioned, you had done the mental health side of things, the program, you put things in place. So was that beneficial and helpful in showing and demonstrating that, some success, so when it comes to building, implementing change or bringing in new change, would you say that trust element was important to the buying process?
100%. I think you have to show them where the rubber hits the road, right? If you can put the trust in me, like, even if it's low stakes, start small, right? Prove yourself. The proof is in the pudding. All of these analogies and
low hanging fruit.
putting in the effort and building that trust and doing the small things. And, you know, if you have a goal that is, a DEIB program that has all of these great um, uh, resources and tools, that's a great end goal. But what can it's going to take time, right? So starting
Mhm.
off small, and like you said, the small low hanging fruit, and working on the things that you can get on, and showing them that you can collaboratively have a conversation, work on it together, even if you don't agree, but
Mhm.
still make progress that everyone is happy with. And then you just push it a little bit farther and continue to, like I say, respectfully push that envelope. I
Mhm.
think that's the key.
What would you say is one of the biggest challenges you came across, either in bringing DEIB into your organization or being in the community at large, or even bringing about change? What's been your biggest challenge, you would say, and how you overcame it?
I think the topic of DEIB has a connotation that people come to the table with. They think that it's going to be this very aggressive, protest centric kind of discussion. And I think, based on what's been on the news and everything, people come in with a preconceived notion as to what the conversation is going to be. And
Mhm.
it's not that anyone's pushing an agenda, it's more just, um, like I said, having that conversation and explaining, we all have biases. And I'm not just talking about, racial or sexual orientation. I'm talking about everything. A single mother is more likely to have more compassion for a single mother because she understands what her struggle is. And there's nothing wrong with that. But we all have biases, and having that conversation and just um, trying to get people to open up and be
Mm.
willing to have the conversation is a little bit can be challenging sometimes, because like I said, people seem to think that it's this really politicized conversation when it doesn't need to be. It's just about making sure that everyone is respected, everyone
Mhm.
is welcome, everyone feels like they're safe and
Mhm.
they can be who they are.
And I take it that tying this back to what you said earlier, what helps was, like you said, meeting them where they are in that conversation and not expecting that they should already know or they should already be button type of thing, but having that empathy towards in that conversation and that emotional intelligence, which are really two key skills that we focus on when we teach about change leadership, or when we teach about leading change at the change leadership, that empathy and emotional intelligence to meet them where they are, put your understanding and what I want to say a little bit aside, or just put your awareness of thinking, assuming that, oh, everybody should know it just because you know it, and type of thing. So Tiana, like I mentioned earlier, one of the things that was very important to us when we came about the Change Leader Awards was really recognizing everyday change leaders that are doing the work, and not only about somebody with position and title at the top, but people wherever you are on the ladder, beginning, middle, top tier of your career or in the workplace. What has it been like for you being a winner in this category and just being recognized for the work you're doing as a change leader? What has it meant for you?
I always say that I don't do this type of work for recognition or for accolade. That's not what I do it for. I genuinely care about people, and I want people to feel accepted and belonging and loved and part of the team. Um, that being said, as I mentioned, I kind of built this role from the ground up. We never had anyone in communications before this, and I didn't become a manager until January of this year. So I was doing the work and building something regardless of a title. And they definitely recognize my work, and they've supported me, and they've have promoted me, and given me the title to match. And I'm so grateful for the opportunity to kind of follow my heart and push for this change and make this all happen. I wake up every day super excited that I get to do this stuff. Like, I'm deliriously in love with my job, and it's so sappy, but I love it so much. And um, the years of grinding out and pushing and having the hard conversations, and sometimes feeling like you're spinning your wheels, which I'm
Mhm.
sure everybody in every role has. It felt like I not only myself, not only my team, not only the organization saw me, but the community saw me as well, which was incredible. And even the nomination, our director of HR is the one who nominated me. And when I got the email, I burst into tears because
Oh.
it was so just, being seen is really important. And I felt really
Mm.
grateful for that. So, and I also think it's really helpful for us to show our community what we're really about and what we're passionate
Mhm.
about, you know?
I like that. I like also being seen. We're all humans, and sometimes it can feel thankless what we're doing because you know, that wasn't what you were employed for. You could easily have said somebody else can go do the EIB, but I'm sure that process of having to introduce it to your organization took work. It took unpaid work, you were still having to do the work you were brought in to do, but you were still there pioneering and seeing the vision and saying, let's do this additional work because you saw the value in it. And that's what it is about also at the change leadership, to recognize those efforts that people are doing every day and put a light on the value of, being that change leader in your community, in your organization, and bringing about change that is impactful. And that's something that all of our change leaders were able to demonstrate in their awards, doing impactful work in the community, because we had DIB, we had notable, we had youth, innovation, and different categories. So on behalf of the Change Leadership, on behalf of the Change Leadership Committee, thank you for the work that it is that you're doing. And putting in a quick plug for every and anybody, 2024 Change Leader Awards are going to open soon. And be like Tiana's manager, nominate somebody when the award opens, just to show how grateful and thankful that you are for the work it is that you're doing, and to show that they are being seen, and sometimes too, one of the things that we did in the Change Leader Awards, where we made opportunity for people to nominate themselves for the awards, because sometimes you cannot always wait for somebody to see your work. Sometimes you have to put a light on your work. But we still had a panel that would, assess all of the change leaders, but people were welcome to self-nominate as well. So again, thank you for that. So putting more of a spotlight on you, Tiana, you recently completed the Change Leadership Accelerator program. So this is the signature program at the Change Leadership, which is really about helping folks to develop their change leadership skills. And we go through what it is to lead change and drive change in your organization and community. What was that like for you? Tell us what the program did for you. Tell us about your experience.
I think part of being a leader, regardless if it's just change, a leader in general, in order to be a good leader, you need to be a good learner,
Mhm.
which feels a little cheesy, I know, but um, I think
Because you already are awarded like Change Leader Award. So what are you still learning?
I think, yeah, it's like every day is a school day. You can always learn something. The second that you walk in, through life where you think you know everything, you're
Mm,
already 10 steps behind, right? So the world is constantly changing and evolving, and people's perceptions are changing and evolving. And just the more you can learn, the better. What was really helpful for me is, and if I can be like blatantly obvious or honest here, sorry, I get so passionate about trying to drive this DEIB change that it can be frustrating when somebody kind of digs in their heels and they just don't see it. And instead of feeling that frustration and spinning my wheels and feeling like we're at an impasse, I have these tools to kind of uh, really tap into the empathy even more and understand where they're coming from. The head, hand, heart model is one of my favorites to understand how people process change and how they approach it and how they go through everything. And, you know, uh, even like the change models where it kind of likens it to the grieving process, right? Where
mhm,
people have to, like we said, they come to the table with a whole life lived before we have these conversations, and they kind of have to pause and reevaluate things and question what they know and shift their mindset. And it can take some time, and kind of how to recognize when someone's just a stick in the mud and they're not going to change, and that's okay. Some people won't change, but
mhm.
maybe they're processing, and how to recognize that. So refining my skills and giving me a few more tools in my toolbox was incredibly helpful.
I love some of the items you've mentioned and the models you mentioned that you got from the program, even the change curve and the head, heart, and hand model, which again, that's my favorite as well. What's interesting about the change curve is that you get people saying, oh, that's outdated. Oh, no, you don't really need to know that. Oh, change is not like that. But you mentioned one key thing, which resonates with me, is that sometimes when people are going through change, it can be easily likened to a grieving process. They're losing a part of them. They're losing a fundamental belief that they've held for a long time. You are really, and I'm sure in the DEIB space, we're talking about really strong held beliefs, childhood beliefs, and then you're trying to shift that belief in terms of what it's all about. And that's a huge cognitive dissonance that you're dealing with right there.
Yeah.
And sometimes you're definitely taking them through a grieving process, which you have to recognize that they're going through. So in all kinds of ways, people respond to change differently. And when we understand and respect, which is a great word that you used earlier on, respect how people are responding to this change, we're better able to connect with them from an empathy perspective to really get them to buy more into the change and build that trust with them that engages them or endears them, to the change. There's something John Maxwell says is that, to lead anybody, you must first touch their heart. Very, important, kind
Yeah.
of thing. So, strongly resonates with that. So let's say, so still on the program, let's talk about it. So you knew a lot already. Like I said, you're a change leader award. You came on, you did it one my change leadership accelerator program. I like what you said about, life is about learning. You're always a student, and I'm big on there's a learning on learning and always relearning. What would you say was one of the knowledge gaps that you may have had when it came to leading change that you felt the program was able to help you close in on that gap or achieve?
So my role isn't specifically about change. I think change is a byproduct of what I do. So I
Mhm.
didn't have any background. I was kind of flying by the seat of my pants, just being like, I know this is what I want, and I'm just going to talk my way through it because that's kind of how I approach life. But um, just having real concepts to kind of lean back on, and like I said, pause when things feel frustrating or um, difficult or challenging or anything. It really just um, instead of aimlessly wandering through change and just having conversations and figuring
Mm,
it out. I think one of the things that you mentioned in the course was you may not follow all of these change models exactly, but having them when you get stuck to pull out of that back pocket and be like, oh, okay, this is what I can use or refer back. I'm actually in a meeting room, so I don't have it, but I have all of the course materials in a binder printed out on my desk, so I can like flip through to a page and be like, oh, okay, this is what this means. It's kind of like my handbook now.
yeah, and that's what, I say to people, it's about building your toolkit for when and you need it. And it's not one size fits all, which was a post I recently did on LinkedIn and on social media. It's not one size fits all. You're not going to come with a process and what worked for this person or work for that organization. But it's also about having the principles behind what it means, behavioral sometimes principles when it comes to leading change, and having all of those toolkits to say, okay, I can take this out of my back pocket. I can take this out of my kit, and this is how I need to apply it and when I need to apply it. So, thank you for sharing with on that. Um, as we wrap it up, I could talk about change forever. When we look at everything holistically, um, and you said something about, you're not that traditional. Change is what you do as a byproduct of what leading change is what you do as a byproduct. How do you describe yourself as a change leader? What it means to be a change leader and leading change into this new world of work?
I on my LinkedIn, I think my subcategory or my description is like passionate people person, dedicated advocate. And it comes down to just in my heart of hearts, my entire heart is helping people and wanting to include people and bring them into the fold. And just following that kind of natural innate ability uh, has been a game changer and has completely changed the course of my career and my life. And I think it's benefited our organization. And like I said, I'm very grateful that I have the opportunity to wake up every day and just have these conversations about how we can be even better, right? I
Mhm.
I know one of the hashtags or slogans we use is RLB is awesome, and I know we're awesome.
Oh.
But how can we be more awesome? If awesomer was a word, how can we do that?
Mm. That is so cool. Let me ask you this question, and it's an interesting question. Is there for 1 second or any time you just ever get tired of like, oh my gosh, leading change is hard?
Yeah. If anyone doesn't know, they're lying. I think, yeah, when times get tough, and like I said, I mean, it's not that people are ever super resistant, but sometimes it takes time. And when I feel like I'm, spinning my wheels or having you come up against a difficult barrier or obstacles, there are days where I'm like, I could go somewhere else where this is already in place and I could just sit back and it would be so much easier. But then who would fight for change? Who
Hmm.
would be the person to do the work? And again, like I'm so grateful for what I do. I mean, my job is literally my personality.
Yes.
I always say that it's emails and feelings. Um, I'm very grateful. So even on those bad days, just kind of taking a step back and looking at the bigger picture and reminding yourself, why am I doing this? I'm not doing this for myself. I'm doing this
Mm.
for the next generation. I'm doing this for the people that I work with, that I stand shoulder to shoulder with every day, for the community that we care about so much, for our clients. This is all for them. And if I don't do it, who will? So I'm super jazzed about that.
Okay, so I have two final questions because I
Okay.
have no other question, but I have two final questions. So one comment and the final question. And what I'm getting from that is that when it comes to leading change or purposeful change or impactful change, that can sometimes feel very challenging. Having that bigger why in terms of why you're doing it, that bigger why for the next generation, for the next community makes a whole lot of difference.
100%. I think you can't, like I said, you can't do it for the accolades. It's not that people are busting down your door to thank you for like a mental health book. I mean, some people are very grateful, but you have to do it for the right reasons. And if you're doing it for a show, you're going to get burnt out pretty quickly.
You will it gets so frustrating. Like, why am I doing this? Even with every other time, I'm asking myself the question, why am I doing this again? Why am I doing this again? And when you have that bigger why, it makes a whole lot of difference. And that last question, what is email and feelings?
So communications and culture. So communications is mostly emails and like drafting things. So
Yeah.
I feel like I'm a writer by nature. When I was in film school, I was definitely stronger in like the writing of things than I was in
Mhm,
anything else. And then culture is the feelings, right? It's the
mhm,
connectedness. It's the, are we having a fun time at work? Are we connecting? Are we feeling safe? Are we feeling happy? If we're not feeling happy, what can we do about that? If someone's struggling, how can we get them over that hump? So yeah, I feel like I'm either writing an email or like talking through some feeling, and I'm so here for it.
Emails and feelings. That was my first time of hearing this, and I had to, pause on that one to say, let's talk a little bit about it more. And even you talking about emails, and they say communication is a big part of leading change and driving change. Always the first thing that comes up around change when it comes to leading change, communications. What can you quickly tell us about effective communication?
I think looking at the whole picture is really key. Making sure you have the conversations with the people that need to know before the big announcement happens is huge. Making sure that you understand all the nuances and the bits and pieces as to what's going on. So, yes, this big project is something, but what are all the smaller projects that make that up? And what has
Mhm.
to happen in what timeline? And when do things need to be communicated? So, it can't be a last minute thought. It can't be, we're launching this tomorrow. Can you write an email? It needs to have serious thought put into it. You need to understand your team and
Mhm.
understand their concerns,
Mhm.
so that you can address those ahead of time.
Mhm.
Um, and making sure you have the buy-in from key individuals so that when the communication goes out, there's always those meetings after the meetings, right, where you have a big conversation and then you walk by the coffee station and they're like, did you hear what that lady said? Making sure that you have those people that are going to reinforce the appropriate messaging instead of
Mm,
feeding into the scare or the fear that's happening with change, because there is always fear in change, even if it's going to be beneficial for everyone. There's always that I like how things are feeling at the very least.
mhm.
So just making sure that you have a well laid out plan. I love an Excel spreadsheet. I love Microsoft Planner. Put all of that stuff out there. Use emojis if you have to. Get yourself a planner with stickers. Just make sure you get it all planned out and don't leave it to the last minute.
Thank you. That's a great, note to end on. And thank you so much, Tiana, for this conversation. And is there any final word from you before we go?
Just thank you so much for all the work that you do and sharing your knowledge and helping all of us, not just myself and the other change leaders, but everyone that's in the course and that's following you along, helping us do what we do because you've given us the tools. So thank you
Oh,
for having me and thank you for all.
thank you so much. Thank you, Tiana. And thank you to everybody who joined us live and anybody who is watching the replay. Like I promised, I will drop the link to our next event, which is a book discussion on change management, the essentials. And we're going to have the author with us as we discuss the book. And it's on August 30th, 6 p.m. Eastern Time. I'll drop the link, so be sure to join us then. Thank you, everybody. And bye for now.